We got our next guest coming up, Lester Koga, the co-founder of BareBottle.
How's it going, Chris? Nice to meet you, man.
Another emerging brand in the San Francisco area.
Emerging is very nice of you to say. Thank you.
I have heard that you guys are like, I have a really close friend of mine.
Okay.
That got me into beer. We went to college together, got me into craft beer.
Okay.
And he tells me that BareBottle is like the brand to watch out for now. And he's like an uber beer geek.
I think he's being like super nice. I mean, I don't know if I, take it with a grain of salt.
Okay. So tell me all about BareBottle and tell me what kind of beers you guys are making. I had one of your beers last night.
Nice.
It was a Hazy Brut.
Yep. Oh, cool. Nice. What did you think of the Hazy Brut? We kind of bastardized that style a little bit, so.
Yeah, you took two styles and merged them into one.
I know, like Kim from Social Kitchen, who is kind of the, the inventor of that style, had like very specific guidelines of how it should look, and at BareBottle we just were like, I think a hazy one will be fine, so we just completely bastardized it. So I haven't run into him yet, but I'm sure he may have like some not so kind words for me when he sees what we did to his style. But going back to your original question about BareBottle, we are all homebrewers to start with, kind of a similar story as a lot of folks, but we're the three founders, myself, Mike Seitz, Ben Sterling. We're all friends from business school back east, and we all have ties to the Bay Area. Mike's a Stanford guy. I'm a Berkeley guy. We wanted to come back to the Bay Area and just kind of work in the, the blue, white-collar kind of vibe for 8-9 years and thinking, we want to pursue our passion, and our passion was homebrewing. So we've been homebrewing for 10 years. We're BJCP certified judges. We love the homebrew scene. And as we were judging these homebrew competitions in the Bay Area, that's where kind of the light bulb went off for us, is the people who finish, in the top of their categories or the best of shows when we judge them. The beers were so great, and we're like, man, these are better than so many commercial examples of beers, and they don't have a chance to go anywhere. And, we win comps as well, and we get, a pat on the back. We get a Sam Adams sticker and a baseball cap, and we're like, oh, that's cool. But we're like, well, how do we take these people who are making great, great beer and, can take that to the next step of being on store shelves, being on draft boards? And so for us, that became the guiding principle of BareBottle, which is, hey, how do we kind of embrace competition? How do we embrace homebrewing? And we run homebrew competitions every quarter where we're like, hey guys, make me a beer evocative of Muir Woods. Whatever that means to you, open to interpretation. And we'll get 30 examples of homebrew beers in the Bay Area that evoke Muir Woods. And we whittle it down to the top 3. And then we produce it with the homebrewer on our professional system, and we roll it out to our tap room, and we roll it out to other tap rooms. So the last competition, 13 tap rooms. It was on at Tornado, and I think it's the first time Tornado in a long time has done tasting flights, and they literally allow people to vote. Okay, here are the finalists from Muir Woods A, B, and C. And a poker chip, and whatever beer democratically wins is then what we produce on the big system. We produce for drafts, and then we produce for bottling. So for us, it's all it's kind of getting to our core of homebrewing, since that's what we love.
And that's an incredible concept. How does the homebrewer that wins benefit?
Yeah, great question. So one of the things that we do at BareBottle as well is when we go to production, so we produce 1 bottle or 2 bottles a month, and then we're starting to get into canning a little bit as well. And we print the entire recipe on how to make that beer on the side of the label. And then on that side of the label is also the brewer's name and the brewer's signature. So in Muir Woods, as an example, that was John Warner, homebrew in the city, bartender at Beer Hall. And his name and his signature is on that label, and that label and that beer is available at, say, all the Northern California Whole Foods. And wow. I mean, it's just it's so rewarding, for homebrewers. And we thought about what we would want to, what's rewarding for us as homebrewers is man, to see your beer at the shelves of Whole Foods and to be like, hey, you like my beer? Go to City Beer Store, you can buy bottles of it with my name on it and my recipe on it right then and there.
So it's part crowdsourcing and part consumer engagement.
Absolutely.
I mean, it seems like you would build an incredible raving fan base that way. But how do you scale this type of concept? I mean, as you guys grow, is there still run room for you to operate this way, or do you have to kind of tweak it and, get more traditional?
So for us, I mean, it's always, we have the rest of our week and our month to be traditional, and making the beers that we make. But for us, it's like always keeping that core of, hey, we're always going to be doing this once a quarter. And beyond that, we're trying to find ways to, like, how can we, like, increase, like, the frequency and the number of competition beers that we have. So we have a lot of ideas that we've been bantering around to figure out. Maybe it's like a rolling scale of homebrewers constantly just dropping off bottles with us. Maybe every week or every couple weeks or every month, like, we just sit down as a staff instead of doing a whole, like, BJCP judging round, just, like, figuring out, okay, like, these are the top 3 beers that we got this month, and let's bring the homebrewers in and brew them with us, because it's a great way to, figure out, like, what's on the cutting edge, but it's also a great way for us to, hang out, drink beers, and brew with the homebrewers.
Yeah. Now, as you guys continue to grow, what do you expect to be sort of the most difficult challenges for a new business like yours, and especially in a market like the Bay Area where, I think it's changed so much. I grew up in the Bay Area. It's changed so much since I've been there.
Yep.
Cost of living is crazy.
Sure.
The tap room thing is popular kind of all across the country, but probably a high cost of doing that in San Francisco.
For sure.
So, what do you see as sort of the biggest challenges to growth for your company?
Yeah, it's a great quick question. And like, to me, like, it's the cost piece isn't actually the biggest one, to be honest with you.
Really?
The biggest component is the people component, in that kind of rush in the Bay Area for, all the tech companies and everything kind of growing. It's a matter of, like, finding, like, the best people. And for us, it's always a challenge, but it's always fun to find the best people who are passionate about our industry. So it's like getting the great people who are kind of in line with craft beer, in line with what we want to do, and getting them on board. And I mean, it's kind of funny.
As consumers or as employees?
As employees.
Yeah.
I feel like on the consumer side is, I've always been of the mindset that if you make a great product, like, they will come. But for us, it's always like, how do we find, like, the right team to then communicate to both, the rest of the organization, but also to the fan base, the customer base, the drinking base, that there's so much, like, passion and kind of care that's put into the product, which is so critical for us. It's like, everybody, whether you're on the packaging line or you're in the tap room, like, you are an ambassador to the brand, right?
Yeah.
You represent the brand. A lot of times you are the only touch point a person would have, for our brand. And it's critical that, like, every touch point that somebody would have is a great one and represents our brand. So that piece is kind of like the most critical and the hardest one for us. But it's always the most rewarding challenge when we get there, is when we have a great team, which is what we have right now. We're 2 years old. We started with 5 employees 2 years ago, and we're at 31 employees right now.
Wow.
And I can honestly say, like, those 31 employees, like, are fantastic. And every time I hear people come up to me in the tap room or on the account, the sales side, and they tell me, like, how much they enjoy interacting with our folks, like, there's no greater reward to me than that.
Yeah. 2 years old, 31 employees. How much beer are you guys going to make this year?
So this year we're on track to do 7,000 barrels.
Wow.
So it's
that's
a lot of beer.
that is you guys have quickly scaled in a very short period of time.
Yep.
What's that been like?
I mean,
stressful?
it's been like it's a mix of, like, a dream and a nightmare, to be honest with you. It's like somewhere in that middle ground.
That's what you should call your Brut and Hazy IPA.
It's like a nightmarish dream. It's funny because, one, it's so exhilarating to grow. It's so exhilarating to see people, who recognize our brand. Like, the fact that, like, our brand to me is like, oh, that's such a great pat on the back that people recognize us and say, oh, I love your beer, because that's why we got into the game, We got into the game because we wanted to make a great product. We wanted people to kind of appreciate it. And when people actually do, and they, like, tap me on the shoulder and say, hey, are you from BareBottle? Like, there's no greater compliment than that, like, in this world to me. So, like, I feel incredibly, incredibly fortunate. But then the growth curve is, people are always like, oh, you're running out of beer. Like, that's a great problem to have. And I always stop them and say, yeah, it's a great problem to have, but it's a problem nonetheless.
It's still a problem, yeah.
And, like, I got to deal with accounts that are used to getting our beer, like, not getting our beer. And that's always a difficult conversation to have. We always, we're keeping, like, scaling up and making more beer to meet the demand. But, it's always just chasing the dragon, man. Like, it's always trying to, figure out who you want to disappoint the least that day.
So where do you go from here?
I think for me, it's always, like I said before, this is a product-driven industry. You know, consumers are smart. Consumers know what a good beer is and know what a good beer isn't. And if we're not making the best beer, and if we're not innovating and continuing to figure out, like, hey, what's fun, what's different, what's great, and having high quality standards, like, none of this matters. You know, so number one is like keeping great quality. You know, number two is being innovative, and number three is just getting enough beer in the hands of people who want to drink it.
Now, if somebody wants to drink one of your beers, where can they do that?
So we self-distribute all throughout the Bay Area. So basically any city or county that touches the Bay, you know, very likely if it's a good beer spot, we're going to be there. You can always check our website and figure out kind of where we're pouring the latest. And we're also right now in bottles in basically every Northern California Whole Foods right now.
Awesome. Well, it's going to be exciting to watch you guys grow even more than you already have. 7,000 barrels in 2 years. I mean, that is a quick ramp. I've heard amazing things, as I said, from my closest friend in the Bay Area.
I appreciate that,
and,
man.
We're going to be
Tell
keeping
him thank you.
I will. I will send him the personal message. I'm going to text him as soon as we get off air. But it's been a pleasure chatting with you and getting to know you a little bit.
Here.
I know our audience definitely appreciates it.
No worries.
We'll
My
be keeping
pleasure.
a close eye on your business.
Sounds good.
All right. Thank you so much.
Man.
Thanks,
Okay.
Lester.